Hi there. In this video, I'm going to show you how to program a lot of the settings for your ATEM video switcher. You should not need to do this unless something has changed in your church. But I'll give you a quick introduction into how this is done, just because somebody should know how to do this stuff. It is mostly done in software that controls your ATEM, and that software runs either on a Windows PC or a Mac, on Mac OS. In this case, we have it on a Windows PC because that's what this particular church has. They have a Windows PC that also runs their slideshow, and that's great. So we'll use that computer to do that, which will also let you see a little bit of how Proclaim works together with the ATEM, with the video switcher. The video switcher is called an ATEM constellation. That's the model name. ATEM is a product line from a company called Blackmagic. So if I keep saying ATEM, that's what we're talking about. All right, let's go ahead and get into the software here. All right, you are now looking at the desktop of the Windows PC that this church uses for their slideshows. They used Proclaim, which I've probably recommended your church use, so that'll be convenient. I can show you a few things about how that works together. Okay, minimize this. We're going to look for a program called ATEM Software Control. Software Control for your ATEM. So we're going to click that and open it. It opened in the other window. Let me bring it over here. I'll show you what it says. No switcher connected. And then it brings up an extra menu that is trying to give you options for how to connect to the ATEM. So there's two ways to connect to your ATEM. One way is if it's actually on the same network as the computer we're on, right? If it's on the same LAN and the same VLAN and the same subnet and all that stuff, that's one way to do it. And that's how we're going to do it here in a second. If you don't know what that means, then explaining that is outside the scope of this video. You should take that information to someone else. If you don't know what that means, it might just be easier for you to connect to your ATEM via USB. There's a USB-C port in the back of the physical ATEM. You might just reach around back there, plug in a USB-C cable, and then plug it into this Windows computer, and then they would connect just fine. All right, I just took a second to go reconnect the ATEM to this network, so now it shows up and you can see that this is what I want. And I do want to connect to that. Connect. All right, so there's a lot of things that you can see in this software. We're going to start on this tab. In fact, let me show you what tabs are. There are 4 different tabs in here, 2 of which you will never use. There is a tab for cameras. This only works if you also have Blackmagic cameras. Unless you have Blackmagic cameras, you can completely ignore this tab. It will have no effect on anything that happens. Media is another tab you can probably ignore. Strictly speaking, the ATEM, your video switcher, can play video files. In practice, it's kind of convoluted, and you probably already have software. Your slideshow software can already do that. So you don't need this tab either. Doing this is just going to make your life complicated. Do all of your videos and all of your media inside of your slideshow software. All right, that leaves us with 2 things. Well, kind of 3 things. You have settings, gear icon over here. We'll get in there in a minute. You have switcher and you have audio. Let's look at switcher first. I'm going to maximize this. If you have ever seen a piece of hardware that looks like this, maybe on TV, like a TV show about the news or something like that, you've probably seen a piece of hardware that looks like this. And this is modeled on a hardware switcher. That's what we call that thing. Most hardware switchers don't look like the switcher your church has. Most hardware switchers look a lot more like this. There's a lot more buttons and it's a lot more complicated. Strictly speaking, you can use this software to control your ATEM. In fact, let me, if you'll let me change something real quick, I'll even show it to you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and show you the multi-view monitor on your ATEM. on this church's ATEM at least. And then I'm just gonna click these buttons here on the Windows interface. All right, you can see the multi-view, and now I'm just gonna click, 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 click. All right, let's cut back to Windows, and now you're looking at Windows again. So strictly speaking, you can use this software. If you have a reason you need to control your ATEM remotely in a different part of your church or something, and you can get the same LAN network in that other part of the church, you can control the thing with this software. That's a really rare use case, but you should know that it is possible. Let me move on with some things that are a little bit more useful to most people. Let's talk about how to program the green screen effect. So let's look at your multi-view again. You're looking at the multi-view. You can see in this situation, computer 6 is the where the green screen comes from. So on the physical ATEM, when I press key 1 mix, it does the green screen effect. You can see, let me zoom out a little bit. Yeah, we'll zoom out a little bit. So I press the button, green screen works, right? You've seen this probably in your own church. How do I program that on computer 6? That's what I'm gonna show you. Let's look, now you're looking at Windows again. You go to upstream key 1, that's where you wanna go. And this lets you program your key. A key, let me explain what a key is. A key is something that removes part of the image and makes it transparent so that you can see one image and another image at the same time. Great. There's a few ways to do that. You can do that based on luminance. Luminance is another word for brightness. So if you wanted to filter out all of the things in the image that are truly black, you could do that here. I can't think of how that would be useful in a church, but you could do it here. What you actually, or you can do it via a pattern like shapes, and that would just block out certain parts of the image, right? That maybe could be useful in some complicated cases. What you want is the chroma tab. Chroma refers to color. So let me show you how to set this up. The fill source, as we saw in this particular church, is computer 6. And you know that by knowing that's where the green screen stuff is. Let me show you the multi-view again. See how computer 6 is the one with the green screen? Right. That's how you know what the fill source is. The fill source is that. So in this case, computer 6, right? If your church has the green screen showing up on input 4 and you called it computer 4 or something like that, then you want it to say that. Okay. Now let me show you the other thing that you really need to do, and that's to get the chroma sample. So click that right there, and it brings up this box. And this box is simulating the image you see on the multi-view. Let me show you again. You see how the multi-view, 80% of it is green, but down in the bottom left of it, it gets gray because that's where the text is. Yes. And then see on the Windows computer how when I move down in that portion of the image, that's where the text is, right? Because it's sampling that, and you have to imagine that this is the same as computer 6. So down here, it's all gray and black and stuff. Up here, all over the rest of it is the green color, right? Precisely. You want to get a good sample of that green color, so a big blank space. Click preview. Boom. That's what you got. If you discover that this is grayed out and you can't adjust that, it's because you have key 1 enabled on the front of the hardware. So make sure you disable it right here. Make that disabled, and then all of a sudden you'll be able to access that setting. All right, that's how you program the keyer. Let's go look at the audio tab. That's almost the only thing you want to deal with on this in the real world. Let's go to the audio tab. In practice, let me say this differently. With some cameras, you will get audio from the cameras, and you don't want that. because you're going to get audio from your audio mixer, your whatever audio mixer you have. That's where you get audio. So you can pull down all the audio from all of these cameras, media player 1, media player 2. You're not using those either. Where you are getting audio from is on connections on the back of your ATEM called TRS. Your TRS ports are receiving audio from your audio mixer. Or if you installed an Angry Audio C4 live stream broadcast processor, the audio mixer feeds the C4, and then the C4 feeds the ATEM via its TRS connections. All right, so I'm gonna play some sound that is gonna go through the audio mixer just so you can see what happens. I think I have a Tom Petty song that's gonna... All right, now you can see sound is coming through the audio mixer. The audio mixer is getting sound and it's routing it back out here. So that's great. That's exactly what you want. So you can adjust volume and you can see that it makes things louder, or you can adjust the master volume. This looks like an audio mixer. If you know how to use an audio mixer, you know how to use this. And if you want to access things like compressors and limiters, they're all in here. You will probably notice I've put the gentlest of compression on this TRS input, and then again on the master, because we don't need more than that, because this church has the C4 live stream processor, and the C4 live stream processor is doing all of that work for us. Really, the thing you need to worry about here is distortion. So if you notice your live stream is distorted, like you go home and you listen to it on your computer and you realize the live stream itself is distorted, you could look at the front of your web presenter and see, is that distorting? You know, and it probably is, because you can hear it when you go home. The way to turn the volume down on the web presenter is actually by turning the volume down in the ATEM. The web presenter has almost no controls over audio, so you just turn it down in the ATEM. The ATEM is sending too much sound to the web presenter, so just pull it down a few decibels. You can see, watch this number here. It gets smaller as I bring it down, right? Pull it down a few decibels. Great. That's pretty much all you need to do. All right, let me show you a couple more settings before we wrap this up. I want to show you how to name sources. Actually, since this opened, I should show you this. Your video standard is almost certainly one of two things. It's almost certainly either 1080p at 59.94 or it's 2160 at 59.94. If your system is set up to work in 4K, you're going to want this number to be 2160p 59.94. If you are operating in 1080p, then you want it to be this. This church is using 1080p. And you can, if you want it to be different for your multi-view for some reason, you can do that. Okay. Let's go to sources. This is where you name all of the various sources. So when we look at your multi-view, you can see you have camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, camera 4, computer 5, computer 6. How did computer 5 get to be called computer 5? That happens on this screen right here. Name computer 5 and computer 6. So you can type it in there. You can name your outputs. In fact, in this case, maybe I'll name output 1, in this case, is Sanctuary TV. Output 2 is Confidence TV. That's mounted in the back of the Sanctuary. And output 6 is Live Stream. Okay, done. Cool. One more thing. When you're done, you can't just close this program. You have to click Save Startup State. Save Startup State writes all the settings you just changed to the hardware ATEM switcher. Save Startup State is what you want. If you don't do this, if you just close this program, then you've changed the settings for now, but as soon as your ATEM reboots, it's going to revert to whatever it was doing before you changed things. So it's very important you do save startup state. All right, one more thing. The outputs, you'll see output 1, we've changed the name to Sanctuary TV. Strictly speaking, you can change the outputs on any source to be practically anything. So let me show you what that means in practice. You'll see, you can see that TV way off in this Sanctuary is just displaying the slideshow. But I can actually change it to display, say, a camera. Oh, there you go. I could even make it display the green screen thing if you want. I can't imagine why you would, but it's possible, right? You can control all that with outputs. Let me put this back. Computer 5. Now, if you're thinking, actually, that sounds like that might be useful, you can actually access those same settings in the menu of your ATEM. This is hard to show you, but I'm going to try and do this. You can go and press Menu, and then scroll around until you find Outputs. Outputs. So Set lets me select and go in this menu, and then I can scroll up and down to the different outputs. Sanctuary TV right there. It's Output 1. You can't tell it's Output 1 because I changed the name, but it is. Yours will probably say Output 1. You click Set, and then you can change things here. So I'll change it to Camera 1, and you watch the TV. Camera 1, boom. Yeah, exactly. So that is the same settings that I was adjusting in the ATEM software control. I'm going to fix this and get out of this menu. All right, folks, that's a quick introduction into how to adjust the ATEM software control.